Halo, selamat pagi teman-teman semua. Oke, ketemu lagi di EF Talk Sabtu pagi hari ini.
Recording in
Terima
progress.
kasih untuk semuanya yang sudah datang. Kalau misalnya Sabtu kemarin teman-teman yang sudah sempat join di EF Talk sebelumnya, kalian semua sama Miss Vicky. Kali ini kita belajar TOEFL pagi hari ini ditemenin sama saya, Farid, sampai acaranya nanti selesai. Nah, ini sebelum kita mulai dan mulai masuk ke kegiatan kita pagi hari ini di kelas gratis pagi hari ini, aku mau mastiin dulu nih teman-teman semua apakah bisa mendengar suara saya dengan baik? Kalau misalnya teman-teman bisa dengar, boleh dibantu di kolom chat box-nya. Apakah memang teman-teman bisa kasih respon? Apakah suaranya sudah terdengar dengan baik dan jelas? Kalau misalnya di sini, teman-teman yang sudah datang dari jam setengah 10 tadi, mungkin ya sudah di waiting room atau dari jam 9 kurang, atau dari jam 10 kurang sudah datang. Kalau misalnya kalian ngalamin kendala untuk bisa akses kelas gratis pagi hari ini, kalian bisa langsung ke YouTube channelnya IF Surabaya di @IF Surabaya. Nanti kalian bisa nonton di sana juga. Dan kalau misalnya kalian di sini buru-buru, mungkin ada kegiatan pagi hari ini, kalian pengen ada acara apa yang mungkin tidak bisa, nggak punya banyak waktu untuk bisa nonton acara ini sampai selesai, jangan khawatir. Karena nanti siaran ulangnya kalian bisa tonton lagi di YouTube channelnya IF Surabaya. Jadi kalian nanti bisa tonton lagi di rumah atau bisa tonton lagi dimanapun kalian berada sambil belajar lagi materi pagi hari ini. Nah, ngomongin soal materi pagi hari ini, jangan khawatir. Karena nanti materi sama e-certificate sama seperti kegiatan-kegiatan sebelumnya. Kalau misalnya teman-teman sudah sempat ikut di EF Talks yang lalu, kalian akan mendapatkan materi dan juga e-certificate yang akan dikirimkan ke email aktif kalian. Caranya kayak gimana? Nanti di akhir acara, kita akan kasih tahu kalian untuk bisa ngedapetin atau ngeklaim e-sertifikat dan materi pagi hari ini yang bisa kalian gunakan untuk belajar lagi di rumah. Jadi hari ini kalian bisa fokus dulu, bisa lihat dulu materinya, bisa ngikutin materinya seperti apa, penjelasannya nanti dari pembicara juga seperti apa, biar kalian fokus sama materinya. Karena hari ini seperti yang kita ketahui, kita akan belajar tips seputar TOEFL khususnya di bagian structure and written expression. Jadi nanti di bagian itu kita akan bahas secara detail dengan salah satu pembicara kita pagi hari ini. Nah, sama seperti kegiatan-kegiatan sebelumnya, kalian semua nanti kalau misalnya selama acara ini berlangsung, ada pertanyaan seputar TOEFL atau materi yang sedang disampaikan, nanti kalian sampaikan saja di kolom chat box. Kita akan bacakan di sesi-sesi tertentu untuk kemudian langsung kita bahas dengan pembicara. Jadi kalau misalnya sudah jalan nih materinya terus kalian bingung dengan sesuatu yang dijelaskan di PowerPoint yang kalian lihat, kalian langsung tulis aja di chat box. Nanti kita akan bacakan atau aku akan bantu untuk langsung sampaikan ke pembicara kita pagi hari ini untuk langsung didiskusikan. Oke? Nah, supaya kegiatan ini bisa lebih interaktif lagi, kalian kita persilahkan untuk menyalakan kameranya juga. Jadi biar kita tahu nih kira-kira siapa aja yang sudah datang pagi hari ini di kelasnya. Nanti untuk mikrofon tentu saja kita akan mute untuk sementara waktu selama kelas berlangsung terutama. Jadi supaya nanti penjelasan dari pembicara kita pagi hari ini cukup jelas dan kalian sekali lagi aku ingatkan untuk fokus aja sama materinya. Jadi diperhatikan saja karena nanti kalian akan mendapatkan materinya dari kita untuk dikirim melalui email aktif kalian. Tapi kalau misalnya ada poin-poin yang memang perlu kalian catat, silakan dicatat. Cuman untuk memperhatikan materinya kita bisa lihat langsung aja nanti dijelaskan oleh pembicara kita pagi hari ini. Oke, langsung aja kalau gitu tanpa berlama-lama, suaranya juga sudah cukup jelas sama teman-teman. Sudah bersama dengan saya secara online. Kebetulan pembicara kita pagi hari ini dari Malang, jadi salah satu senior teaching manajernya EF English First Malang. Di sini kita langsung sapa aja kalau gitu. Selamat pagi atau good morning, Mr. Darren. Mr. Darren, are you there?
Yep, good morning, everybody. Wow, that's an old picture of me, isn't it?
Oke, is it only me or teman-teman bisa dengar suaranya Mr. Darren nggak? Hold on, Mr. Darren. Oh, I need to move my... there you go. Okay, how are you, Mr. Darren?
I'm fine and dandy, thank you. How are you?
A bit nervous, but thank you.
Me too, really.
Oke, teman-teman sudah siap semua ya kalau gitu ya. Pagi hari ini disiapkan catatannya, disiapkan note-nya. Sekali lagi untuk materi dan lain-lain, fokus aja karena pagi hari ini Mr. Darren akan langsung menyampaikan materi kelasnya seputar TOEFL terutama untuk structure dan written expression. Dan nanti materinya sekali lagi akan dijelaskan dalam bahasa Inggris. Tapi jangan khawatir kalau misalnya di sini teman-teman merasa kurang bisa mengikuti atau kurang memahami materi yang disampaikan. Nanti aku akan bantu untuk menjelaskan poin-poin terpentingnya untuk aku jelaskan ulang supaya waktunya juga tidak memakan banyak waktu. Jadi nanti di sini teman-teman bisa paham kira-kira poin yang disampaikan sama Mr. Darren dari slide ke slide-nya itu kira-kira seperti apa. Sekali lagi kalau misalnya kalian punya pertanyaan seputar materi yang dijelaskan oleh Mr. Darren, kalian tulis saja di chat box, nanti kita akan bahas bersama Mr. Darren, oke? Okay? So Mr. Darren, can we start your material
We
today?
can. Absolutely. Just let me share my screen. I have no idea what you just said there, by the way, but never mind. Okay. Can you see my little white screen?
Yep.
With nothing on it? Okay.
I can see it.
All right. The first thing I'd like to do is, excuse me, I just need to make that smaller. The first thing I'd like to do is just go through the structure of the TOEFL test. If you've done a TOEFL test before, you know all this, but I'll go through it quite quickly. There are 3 parts to the TOEFL test. There's listening, structure, and reading. And you'll see here the number of questions and the amount of time it takes. Excuse me. So for the structure and written expression, which is what we're looking at today, it's the shortest paper. There's only 40 questions, but you only have 25 minutes to complete it. Okay. So today, just looking at the structure, obviously we don't have a lot of time today, so I'm not going to go through many points. So I'm going to try and cover the most common things. When I say common, I mean things that come up most in the TOEFL test. So I've been through a lot of old ITP tests and looked at the things which come up most regularly. All of the tests do test your understanding of common structures and uncommon structures. And here, when I say common and uncommon, I mean structures that are common in everyday speech, in everyday English. So the things in green are the most common, both in the way we use them and in the test. And they're the ones that we're going to look at today. Subjects and verbs, agreement, and parts of speech, which may sound like gobbledygook to some of you. Basically, subjects and verbs, I hope you know, and we'll look at in a moment. Agreement is making sure that your subject matches with your verb. And when I say parts of speech, I'm talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, and things like that. I would say around 40% of questions, maybe slightly less, on the structure test are based around an understanding of this. Then they look at other things which are slightly less common, which are the yellow ones. We won't look at them, but they're things like the passive forms and comparatives and superlatives, which if you have an intermediate level of English, you should be familiar with. And then they also throw some weird questions at you. Strange inversions, phrasal verbs, idioms, that sort of thing. We're definitely not going to look at those today because they're weird. Farid, do you want to help?
Oke, summarize dikit ya sama ada ceritanya sama Mr. Darren. Jadi disclaimer aja bahwa hari ini yang akan dibahas sama Mr. Darren adalah hal-hal yang memang lebih sering keluar atau sering muncul di bagian structure dan written expressions. Nah, tadi kalau misalnya teman-teman sempat memperhatikan sama yang dijelaskan Mr. Darren, 40% dari bagian structure dan written expression ini nanti adalah keluar di bagian hijau. Ada subject dan verbs, agreement, dan part of speech. Sebenarnya di bagian structure dan written expressions, ini ada beberapa hal yang memang akan muncul. Tadi seperti sempat disinggung sama Mr. Darren, waktunya kalian untuk mengerjakan di bagian structure sama written expression itu cuma 40 menit. 40 soal tapi 25 menit. Jadi ada 40 soal tapi waktu kalian untuk mengerjakan itu cuma 25 menit. Nah, kita akan bahas hal yang paling banyak keluar dan hal yang paling sering sekali ini bikin bingung sebenarnya di bagian tes TOEFL, yaitu di bagian subject dan verbs, lalu ada agreement serta part of speech. Nah, nanti kita akan run through itu satu-satu, tapi kita tidak akan run through keseluruhan bagian structure dan written expression-nya. Jadi yang paling sering bikin bingung ini yang akan kita bahas dan akan dibahas lebih detail dengan Mr. Darren. Oke?
Okay. I can move on.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sorry, Mr. Darren.
No worries. Before we look at the kind of grammar bits, let's look at the way the test is designed. You'll see it's called structure and written expression because there are 2 parts. There's the structure part and the written expression part. Excuse me, let me close that window. Okay. The structure part is 15 questions, and they're all the same structure. It's just a sentence with a gap in the sentence and 4 choices, 4 options that you can fill the gap with. Okay. Most of my students say that this is the easier part of the test. It's easier than the written expression. So I thought you could have a quick go here, have a little practice. Here's a typical question you might find, and you can type in the chat box what you think the answer is, A, B, C, or D.
Oke, latihan sedikit ya. Jadi ini salah satu jenis soal yang akan kalian temukan di written expression, dan kalau misalnya tadi kalian dengar, Mr. Darren sempat cerita bahwa menurut murid-muridnya, bagian ini adalah bagian yang paling gampang untuk dikerjakan. Gitu. Jadi ini kalian coba, ada 15 pertanyaan basically, nanti fill the gap in a sentence ini kalian akan temukan di bagian written expression. Jadi menurut kalian di contoh soal yang pertama ini jawabannya apa?
Okay. I've got lots and lots of answers, and they all say C, and you're absolutely right. Well done. I told you it was the easiest part, yeah?
Okay.
And this is an example really of why TOEFL's focused so much on subjects and verbs. Most of the wrong answers here either have too many subjects, too many verbs, that sort of thing. The questions is your subject. You already have a verb here, the verb to be. So you don't want another verb coming in here. So A and B would be wrong. D looks like it might be okay because you have an extra subject as well. So you could have 2 subjects with 2 verbs, but you can't just go subject, subject, verb. Okay, so well done, everybody. C, easy question. Bing. Then we have the written expression part, which most people say is more difficult. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about this because in a lot of books and a lot of websites, you'll find a tip which says, for the written expression, don't read the whole sentence. Now, all of these questions, there are 25 of them, are just a sentence, and there's a mistake in the sentence. And they underline 4 parts, usually a word, sometimes more than 1 word. And you need to decide which of those parts is wrong. Now, I disagree with the tip about not reading the whole sentence. Honestly, I would read the whole sentence anyway, and I'll talk about why later. But first of all, have a read of this and same again. See if you can find the right answer, A, B, C, or D.
Oke, sambil teman-teman jawab, aku coba highlight case yang dibawa sama Mr. Darren ini ya. Mr. Darren ini sempat menemukan ada beberapa mungkin artikel online yang mungkin kalian temukan tentang tips mengerjakan soal written expression. Dimana kalau misalnya kalian menemukan contoh soal seperti yang ada di box hijau, salah satu tips yang disebutkan sama kebanyakan orang adalah nggak perlu membaca full kalimatnya untuk bisa menjawab pertanyaan kalian. Tapi di sini Mr. Darren tidak setuju. Nah, kenapanya nanti akan dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren. Nah, sekarang sambil menunggu Mr. Darren menjelaskan kira-kira kenapa akhirnya penjelasan itu tidak disetujui oleh Mr. Darren, kalian coba jawab dulu. Contoh soal yang ada di kolom hijau itu kira-kira jawabannya apa?
Wow, not quite as many answers coming this time. Okay, there's more. All right, I've got a few C's and lots of no answers. And that's understandable. This is a lot more difficult, especially because I've put the word answerable in there, which sounds wrong. And everybody's going for C. The correct answer is A. Okay. First of all, why is A wrong? It's because it's working with questions. Questions is a countable noun, and therefore it should be a small number of questions. Okay, we use amount for uncountable things and number for countable things. That's why amount is wrong. Answerable usually is more commonly used to mean responsible for, or responsible to someone, I should say. But it can also be used meaning it's possible to answer the question. And here it just looks wrong because it's a weird word. So if you don't read the whole sentence, it's very tempting just to go C. C is wrong. Okay. If you do read the whole sentence, first of all, you'll realize that amount is working with questions, and that's why it's wrong. But also this may seem a little bit more acceptable. Okay. However, like I say, a lot of sort of books and websites will recommend, for speed, I think, just reading the underlined parts first and seeing if you can tell which bit is wrong. I think they do that to save time, but honestly, I promise you, I have looked through over 10 old tests just looking at this. And I found that less than 10% of the questions can be answered, can definitely be answered without reading the whole sentence. Okay. So I don't think it saves time because basically for most of them, you'll have to read the whole sentence afterwards anyway.
Ini penjelasannya Mr. Darren ya. Can I explain it for a bit,
absolutely.
Mr. Darren? Jadi tadi kenapa akhirnya Mr. Darren itu tidak setuju dengan salah satu tips yang kalau misalnya kalian dihadapkan dengan pertanyaan written expression, terus dihadapkan dengan kalimat-kalimat yang kata-kata yang digarisbawahi, kira-kira untuk menemukan mana yang sebenarnya itu salah, tanpa membaca kalimat tersebut secara keseluruhan, ya ini tadi. Tadi Mr. Darren sempat mention bahwa kalau misalnya kalian tidak baca kalimat itu secara keseluruhan dan memahami artinya seperti apa, maka memang C, answerable itu sangat tempting banget untuk bisa kalian jawab bahwa itu salah. Karena anggapannya aneh aja sebenarnya ada di dalam kalimat itu. Padahal penjelasannya, tadi Mr. Darren sempat mention tentang countable sama uncountable nouns. Jadi kalau misalnya di situ questions, harusnya di situ pakai small. Mr. Darren, how you explain about the amount about uncountable and countable nouns?
Sorry, yes. If you've got countable nouns, then you can't use the word amount. It should be the word number.
Okay.
Amount works for uncountable things. So we have a small amount of time. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Darren. Jadi tadi sempat yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren bahwa salahnya sebenarnya di kata-kata yang A, bukan yang C. Mungkin secara sekilas kalau misalnya kalian benar-benar tidak membaca dan memahami kalimat secara keseluruhan itu seperti apa, ya udah akhirnya yang tempting untuk dijawab atau yang sangat menggoda untuk dijawab bahwa itu salah, padahal cuma kelihatan aneh, sebenarnya itu benar, ya answerable. Oke, jadi kalian harus benar-benar tahu tentang konsep-konsep kalimat-kalimat penggunaannya seperti apa. Kalau misalnya itu ada di satu kalimat, apakah memang itu sudah benar secara penggunaannya atau seperti apa. Nah, seperti yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren tadi, bahwa sebenarnya yang salah itu di kata-kata amount-nya. Seperti itu. Mr. Darren?
So on that subject, I've just got 2 questions. They're from old TOEFL tests. And what I've done is hidden the bits which are not underlined to see if we can answer them without reading the whole sentence. Okay. Excuse me, there we go. Here's the first one. And what I'd like you to do is, if you think that you can answer this question already without reading the rest of the sentence, then you can type your answer, A, B, C, or D. If you don't, if you think that you need to read the whole sentence before you can answer it, then you can type E.
Oke, nah ini kita coba pakai rumus kalau misalnya memang kalian tidak perlu membaca kalimat secara keseluruhan dan kalian bisa menjawabnya hanya dengan berdasarkan kata-kata yang digarisbawahi, terus untuk bisa menetapkan bahwa kata-kata itu salah. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian bisa jawab dengan benar, silahkan tulis jawabannya kalian, A, B, C, atau D. Tapi kalau misalnya kalian perlu melihat a whole sentence, silakan ketik E di chat box. Nanti kita akan kasih tahu.
Okay. At the beginning, I saw lots of C's. I think people were waiting to see what to write if they wanted the whole sentence. And then at the end, it's lots of people saying, let's wait for the whole sentence. Okay. Before I give you the answer, I'm going to show you another one and just do the same thing. Okay. Same deal. So if you know the answer already, A, B, C, or D. If you want to read the whole sentence first, type E. Okay.
Oke, kita coba beralih ke soal yang lainnya dulu ya. Sama, tanpa perlu membaca kalimatnya secara penuh, kalian tinggal baca aja dari kata-kata yang digarisbawahi. Kira-kira dari A, B, C, sama D yang menurut kalian itu salah.
All right. Oh, we're getting lots of A's. Nobody wants to read the whole sentence for this one. Wow. Okay, I better show you the answers now. I saw two people for that last one asking to see the whole sentence. I will let you know now. Well done, everybody who answered this second one correctly, because you don't need to read the whole sentence for this one. However, honestly, if you said, wait for the whole sentence, I think that's the best thing to do. Because if you look at the top one, a lot of people said see first, because to with verb ing looks wrong. And it usually is. However, in this sentence, it's absolutely fine. Have a quick read of the sentence and see if you can answer now that you've read the whole sentence.
Oke. Nah, ini kalau misalnya pakai kalimat yang atas, kalian tadi tanpa perlu ngebaca kalimatnya, mungkin kayak dijelasin sama Mr. Darren, to sama ing itu akan kelihatan salah. Padahal kalau semua kalimatnya muncul, secara sentences itu nggak ada masalah. Nah, kali ini kalimatnya muncul nih. Kalau misalnya teman-teman mau jawab ulang, silakan dijawab ulang. Contoh kalimat yang atas, kira-kira jawabannya apa yang benar?
Okay. Now, with the whole sentence, a lot of answers have changed.
See?
The bad news is they've changed to another wrong answer, because this is a really tough question, all right? The incorrect part of this sentence is actually A, okay? In about 1920. And it's difficult because this is wrong because of this bit over here, have devoted, okay? For those of you who want the extra grammar bit, have devoted is the present perfect. So we cannot use the present perfect with a time phrase which is finished. Now, in about 1920 is finished. Okay, so you wouldn't be able to use the present perfect. Now, we can't change the present perfect because that's not underlined. Therefore, A should actually read since about 1920, experimental, blah, blah, blah. Okay. D is actually fine. They've devoted more research to learning than to any other topic. It looks a bit strange maybe with this to before it, but it's absolutely fine. You don't need the to there, but you can have it because it works with this research. I will mention about why C is okay here. There are a few expressions and a few words in English that work with to and then verb ing and using a gerund, okay? Some common examples are words like addicted. So I'm addicted to shopping, that sort of thing. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any others. But if you want some, I'll try and think of them later and put them in the chat box.
Oke. Penjelasannya singkat dulu ya. Can I give a bit explanation, Mr. Darren? Jadi tadi kenapa akhirnya sebenarnya yang salah itu tadi kalau misalnya teman-teman perhatikan dari yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren, aku sedikit ulang aja ya, bahwa kalimat yang dikasih highlight adalah in about 1920. Tadi dijelaskan di situ ada kalimat sebenarnya yang bikin dia salah adalah have devoted. Karena kalau misalnya ada di situ itu present perfect. Yang namanya present perfect ini tidak bisa digunakan di waktu yang sudah selesai. 1920 itu sudah selesai. Jadi nggak bisa pakai in, pakainya since. Jadi since about 1920 baru itu benar. Kenapa akhirnya in itu jadinya salah? Itu bukan kata-kata yang benar untuk digunakan di kalimat tersebut. Makanya akhirnya to learning sama any other itu sebenarnya nggak masalah. Nah ini akibatnya kalau misalnya kalian tidak baca kalimat itu secara keseluruhan dan kalian cuma baca kalimat-kalimat yang digaris bawahi. Kayak tadi kasih contoh bahwa ya udah mungkin to sama learning itu kelihatan salah. Padahal ketika kalimatnya muncul dan kalian baca secara keseluruhan nggak ada yang salah dari kalimat to learning itu tadi. Oke ya semuanya ya. Back to you, Mr. Darren.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly for the second one, I'll show you the full sentence. There we are. And everybody who answered was correct. I think it was all A's. And you're absolutely right. Can-based is always going to be wrong. There is no way I can think of a sentence where that could work. Can is a modal verb and should always work with the base form, verb one. Okay. Therefore, it should be can be based on many criteria. So you've seen that this is an example of one of the questions which you can answer without reading the whole sentence. But as I mentioned before, when I looked at all the questions, it's less than 10% that you can answer like that. And I honestly don't think it saves you any time, because most of the time you'll be reading the underlined bits and then going back and reading the whole sentence anyway. It makes much more sense to me to just read the whole sentence, and at least that way these isolated underlined parts have got some context around them which can help.
Oke, jadi kalau yang hijau itu sudah jelas ya teman-teman ya, bahwa teman-teman yang sudah menjawab A tadi can based itu model based, jadi harusnya pakai verb one, jadi nggak pakai based tapi ya based yang biasa aja. Nah, yang mau dikasih highlight sama Mr. Darren adalah kalau misalnya kalian mau pakai tips yang keluar, entah itu dari website, entah itu dari sumber manapun yang mengatakan bahwa untuk menghemat waktu, memang sih sebenarnya kalau misalnya kalian benar-benar bisa, kalau contoh soalnya adalah contoh soal yang ada di kotak hijau, yang kalian benar-benar bisa langsung tahu bahwa jawaban itu salah, kalian akan memang bisa menghemat banyak waktu untuk bisa mengerjakan soal-soal lainnya. Tapi kalau ternyata kalian ragu dan hanya membaca kata-kata yang digarisbawahi, kalian akan tetap kembali untuk membaca lagi kalimatnya secara keseluruhan. Dan itu akan makin banyak makan waktu lagi untuk kalian mencerna kira-kira memang kata-kata mana yang sebenarnya salah. Jadi akan lebih baik, seperti dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren, kalau misalnya memang kalian membaca keseluruhan secara kalimat itu dari awal, kalian memahami isinya seperti apa, dari situ kalian bisa mengidentifikasi kira-kira dari kata-kata yang sudah digarisbawahi itu mana yang menurut kalian salah. Oke? Back to you, Mr. Darren.
Sorry, I lost my unmute button. Okay. When you're looking at things like this, the subjects and verbs, one of the most difficult parts is sometimes to find the verb. Okay, so if it'll let me move on, here we go. What I'd like you to do is we'll go through these 4 sentences and just type into the chat box what your main verb in each sentence is. So where's the main verb in sentence number 1? Studying TOEFL is a lot of fun.
Oke, di kalimat yang pertama kira-kira verb menurut kalian yang mana verbnya? Karena di kasus-kasus contoh-contoh soal yang seperti ini, kesulitan-kesulitan yang sering kali dialami adalah menemukan verbnya.
Okay, we've got like 50-50 really between is and studying. Okay, what about sentence number 2? I love studying TOEFL. What's your main verb?
Oke, kalau kalimat yang kedua menurut kalian main verbnya yang mana?
Good. I should say at this point, by the way, your main verb is often more than one word. It can be more than one word. Again, we've got lots of love. Oh, I love you. That's very sweet. And a few studyings. Where's your main verb here? The students studying TOEFL are very diligent. Okay, a little bit like the first one, lots of R's and some studyings. Let's go through them. The first sentence, studying TOEFL is your subject, your verb is. So if you put is, well done. The second one, subject I, verb is love, and now studying is part of the object. The third one is the only time that studying is part of the verb, and well done if you put all 3 parts. Have been studying is your whole verb. And then for the fourth one, you've got subject, then you have this participle phrase, which is describing the subject, and then again you've got the verb here, are. Okay, well done if you got all of those correct. Don't worry if you put studying down sometimes when it shouldn't have been, because that's the point I want to make. When you're looking to find your verb in a sentence in the TOEFL test, it's really tempting to find a verb ing and think that's my verb. it just feels like a verb because, you know, it's usually a doing thing. Excuse me. But a lot of the time they won't be used as a verb in that sentence.
Oke. Jadi ini ya, seperti yang kalian perhatikan bahwa contoh-contoh verbnya dari 4 kalimat itu. So, congratulations buat kalian yang memang sudah bisa menemukan verbnya dari keempat kalimat itu. Kita akan cari tahu lebih jauh lagi sama Mr. Darren, kira-kira seperti apa nanti kita bisa mengerjakan contoh-contoh soal yang lainnya, oke? Baik, Mr. Darren.
Okay. The basic thing with verb ing, or the present participle, as most books would call it, it cannot be your main verb unless it's working with a form of the verb to be. Excuse me. It needs the verb to be with it to make the continuous tense. If the verb to be is not there, it's not your verb. Okay, so let's go very quickly here. All I want to know, each of these parts of a sentence, it's only the beginning of a sentence each time, has a verb ing. It has this present participle. All I want to know is the verb ing part of your verb? Yes or no? Excuse me. So let's look at number 1. They will be holding. Okay. Is holding part of the verb?
Nomor 1, kira-kira menurut kalian apakah itu bisa jadi verb atau enggak? Yes or no? Menurut penjelasan kalimat yang di-highlight menggunakan warna merah ya?
We've got lots and lots of yeses. I didn't see any no's. Let's check. You're absolutely correct. We've got the verb to be here, and then we've got verb ing. Okay. Then we've got number 2. He was always telling. Is telling part of your verb? Excuse me.
Ayo, ini kayaknya udah mulai bingung nih. Bisa. Kan tadi udah di-review. Ya apa enggak? Nomor 2.
About 50-50 this one. I love all the different ways of saying no, nay, nah. Well done if you put yes. It is part of the verb. It just
Why?
Well, it's easy to think there's no verb to be, but there is. We've got he was. Okay. And then just like TOEFL often do, they like putting things in the way and separating things. Always kind of gets in the way, but it's basically he was telling. It is part of your verb. Well done.
Hey.
And then the last one, the man watching TV. Is that part of your verb? Yes or no?
Okay, still 50-50, I think. Not 50-50. I saw a few people say yes, and then
a few yeses, mostly
no.
no's, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you did put no, well done. It's not part of your verb. There is no verb to be here. And again, this is just a participle phrase describing the man. Okay, it's kind of telling you which man you're talking about. And your verb would come later in this sentence, something like the man watching TV is falling asleep, something like that. But because you've got no verb to be here, it's not your verb. So when you're looking at that in a TOEFL test, you shouldn't be thinking that's a verb. You should be recognizing that it's not your verb. Okay? I have one little practice question for you. Again, it's just type A, B, C, or D. If I can get it to come up, there we are.
So all we need to do is just find the verb.
Just for this one, just tell me it's which part is wrong. A, B, C, or D.
Which part is wrong?
Yeah, which part is wrong.
Oke, jawab lagi teman-teman. Kira-kira dari penjelasan tadi mana yang menurut kalian salah, A, B, C, atau D? Aku. Jawabannya apa? Malu dilihatin banyak orang. Udah cukup ngejelasin aja di sini. I saw D.
I saw D. I saw lots of A's, a few C's as well.
And I saw A with question mark.
All of them have a question mark in my mind. If you put D, Very well done. D is the correct answer. Okay. First, I'll explain why D is wrong. It should be an adjective. It's describing the water. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned parts of speech. They have quite a few questions where they just use the wrong type of word. So here, roughness is a noun. We don't want a noun here. We want an adjective to describe the water. Therefore, it should be calming, rough water. Okay. If you put D, very well done. A lot of people put A because I've been talking about this verb ing, excuse me, which was a bit mean of me. It's kind of a trick question, I'm sorry. But I do have a bonus question for you. And what I'd like you to do is just tell me how many verbs there are in this sentence. How many verbs are there in the sentence?
Oke, sebelum aku coba summarize tadi penjelasannya Mr. Darren ya, Mr. Darren sempat tanya ini kira-kira ada berapa verb menurut kalian di kalimat tersebut? One, three. Oh, we got complete number.
One, two, three, four. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Okay. Well done if you put one. And I know some of you put reduce. It's the only verb. You're absolutely right. This is the only verb in the sentence. It's confusing because it looks like there might be many because we've got lots of verb ings like falling, breaking, and calming. Excuse me. But none of these are verbs. None of them are working with the verb to be. So none of them are verbs. Okay?
Okay.
Someone put zero verbs, by the way. Which is not true. There won't be any, well, there might be sentences, there probably will be sentences in the TOEFL test that don't have a verb, but they will always be wrong, and that will be the mistake with them. Every sentence needs to have a verb, okay? The next point I'm gonna make is similar, but it's much trickier, okay? So we've learned that verb ing, the present participle, cannot be your main verb without the verb to be. A similar thing is true with the past participle, which is what a lot of people here call verb 3. If I can move, there we go. Excuse me. The past participle cannot be a main verb without either some form of the verb to be, which makes the passive voice, or some form of the verb to have, which makes a perfect tense, okay, or a perfect aspect, I should say. So it's kind of similar to the thing we looked at before with verb ing. It's just that this time it can work with two different verbs. It can be to be or to have. If it has one of those, it can be and probably is your verb. If it doesn't have one of those, it's not the verb. All right. So let's do the same kind of exercise again. Oh, sorry. I've got some questions here. I'll come to those in a moment because I'm not quite clear on them. So what's the correct answer? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's reduce.
Yes.
Reduce.
The answer is one verb in that last sentence. Sorry, I'll go back to it. If I can, hold on. There we go. There is one verb in this sentence and it's reduce. None of these verb ings are actually working as verbs. Okay, so reduce is the only verb in the sentence. All right. Going back to this one, have a look again. It's the beginning of sentences. Each time you have the verb 3 eaten, all I want to know is it part of your main verb? So, number 1, the dog has eaten the cake, which, yes or no?
Oke, dari penjelasan kalimat yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren di kalimat berwarna hijau, menurut kalian, contoh kalimat yang pertama itu yes or no?
I think everybody's saying yes, capital yeses as well. Well done, absolutely right. You've got the verb to have here with verb 3, and that's making the present perfect tense. Number 2, the cake eaten by the dog was Yes or no?
Nomor 2. No.
And I'm going to stop right there because everyone's saying no. Absolutely right. Well done. Go TOEFLers. You've got verb 3, but there is no have, there is no be. This is not your main verb. Okay. There is a verb to be over here, but that will be your main verb working, maybe working with something else. But you need the verb to be working with the verb 3. What about number 3 then, very quickly?
Nomor 3.
Good, good, good. Everybody's saying yes, and you're absolutely right, which is great. You're doing much better, perfect on this one. Everybody perfect, I think, on this one. So it maybe seems a bit easier than the verb ing one. It's not, though, for one particular reason, which is that most of the time, verb 2 and verb 3 are the same. And verb 2 obviously can be your main verb, and often it's just in past simple. I have a question here which might show that. Have a read through, and again, just decide A, B, C, or D.
Oke, dari contoh pertanyaan itu kira-kira jawabannya A, B, C, atau D? Weapons and tools in the Bronze Age, following the Stone Age.
Okay, I saw 1 or 2 A's, 1 or 2 B's, but a huge majority is C, and you're absolutely right, the answer is C. The reason I wanted to use this sentence is because sometimes if you see what looks like verb 2 or verb 3 and you're not sure, you'll need to work out how it's being used. Is it just the past simple, or should it be used, is it verb 3, basically? Here, if it was verb 2, iron used, then it doesn't really make sense because used needs to take an object. It's a transitive verb. And iron isn't using anything. It's obviously somebody else using iron, okay? Which means you need the passive voice, which means this is verb 3, and it needs to work with the verb to be to make the passive. Therefore, your choices are A and C. Farid, why C, not A?
Why C, not A?
That's just mean, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll answer it myself. It's only fair. It's because, look at the time phrase. We've got the Bronze Age, the Stone Age. This is very, very, very much in the past. Okay. So if you use A, we're making it present simple. That's not true. It must be the past because this time is finished. Okay. Oh, I'm getting lots of chat box things. Well done. Absolutely. Because it's about the past. Bronze Age. Bronze Age. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. It needs to be about the past. Well done. Okay. Sorry, I've just had somebody ask, why not D? I think the answer is D. The reason you need it, that D would be wrong is you wouldn't have a verb. If you use iron used generally for weapons and tools, there is no verb then in the sentence because iron is not using something. It has to be passive. This must be verb 3. Like I said before, if you use it as past tense, as verb 2, iron used something. It has to take an object. You can't use the word use without giving it an object. To make that clearer, maybe if I say, today I'm going to use, it makes no sense. Use what? You have to have an object. And here you wouldn't have an object. Iron used generally for weapons and tools doesn't give you an object. What it gives you, therefore, is verb 3 on its own. Okay? And that makes it a participle phrase which would describe the iron. Now, that's not necessarily wrong. You know, you can say iron used generally for weapons and tools in the Bronze Age following the Stone Age, which is a very, 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 very long subject. but there is then no verb in the sentence at all. Okay, and that's why D is wrong.
Oke, jadi kalau misalnya jawabannya D tadi, teman-teman tidak akan menemukan verbnya di kalimat tersebut, makanya akhirnya jawabannya bisa digunakan adalah C. Karena sama kayak yang dijelaskan sama teman-teman juga, karena ini talking about the past, jadi karena memang sudah lampau, akhirnya jawabannya yang C, seperti yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren dan juga yang seperti di-highlight sama teman-teman tadi, kenapa jawabannya C. Begitu ya kira-kira ya.
Okay, and yeah, sorry, for these slides, I forgot to put a little highlighter on. The answer is C. Okay, the answer is C. So to summarize, verb ing cannot be a main verb unless it's got some form of the verb to be. Now that could be been, was, is, am, are, whatever. But if it's not there, it's not your main verb. And then verb 3, the past participle, cannot be a main verb unless it has the verb to be or the verb to have. But be careful, maybe it's just verb 2, in which case it's fine on its own. Okay.
Oke, jadi again ini yang di-highlight sama Mr. Darren ya teman-teman ya. Untuk bisa menemukan verbs, hal-hal yang perlu diingat adalah terutama yang di tulisan hijau sih yang biasanya lebih tricky. Jadi kalau misalnya di past participles atau verb 3, itu nggak akan bisa jadi main verbnya kalian kalau misalnya kalian tidak menemukan form of the verb to be atau pakai to have. Tapi biasanya ada trikinya kalau misalnya kalian akan menemukan itu di verb yang verb to, itu kalian juga harus hati-hati. Dan another things yang perlu kalian ingat adalah di highlight merah itu bahwa present participle verb ing itu tidak bisa jadi main verbnya kalian kalau misalnya di sana tidak ada to be. Jadi kayak tadi seperti yang dijelaskan sama Mr. Darren, kalau misalnya nggak ada has or something like that, was atau apapun itu, jadi kalau misalnya di situ tidak ada, maka di situ tidak bisa jadi main verbnya kalian. Oke? Okay? Back to you, Mr. Darren.
Thank you. The next thing I want to talk about is agreement. I mentioned this right at the beginning, making sure that your subject and your verb agree. So you're using singular verbs with singular subjects and plural verbs with plural subjects. Excuse me. Sorry, just let me move the window. A simple example of what I'm talking about is if I say, he work at my father's company. He work is wrong because he is singular, therefore it should be he works. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So what I'd like to do now is have a look at these sentences and just tell me if they're correct or incorrect. We've got the Prime Minister always eats at 6 p.m. Okay, is that correct or incorrect?
Ya, jadi tadi memastikan contoh soal agreement ini, you need to make sure between what? Sorry, Mr. Darren, subject and?
Subject and verb.
Subject and verb-nya itu sesuai. Jadi di sini agreement kayak tadi misalnya contohnya, Mr. Darren ngasih contoh kalau misalnya he work at his father company, contohnya. Tapi kalau misalnya di situ kan ada he, jadi work-nya itu salah karena kalau misalnya contoh kalimat seperti itu harusnya pakai s di belakang. Oke, jadi he works harusnya. Nah, sekarang contoh kalimat yang pertama, the Prime Minister always eats at 6 p.m. Menurut kalian itu benar apa enggak?
Okay, I'm getting a lot of answers and it's about 50-50 actually between correct and incorrect. Yep. And I saw somebody put the verb is plural. So I need to be clear here what I mean by plural verbs and singular verbs. It might look like the verb is plural because we've got eats and it's got an S on it, which is what we always think of when making plurals. When it's a noun, yes, we can make plurals by adding S. Plural verbs do not have S. It's singular verbs that have S. You can kind of think of it as a lot of sentences need an S either on the noun or on the verb. But that might just be confusing. Let's have a look at it. The Prime Minister is your subject and he's singular. Eats is your verb and this is also singular. Okay. Excuse me. And you'll need to get used to that. Think of, I don't know if you've been in English classes at school and had to do this sort of I play, you play, we play, they play, he plays, she plays, it plays. It's the singular verbs that have the S. So a verb with S works with a singular subject. A verb without S, just eat or go or play, works with a plural subject. Therefore, this sentence, sorry, I'm just looking at the last answers. Okay, yep, we've got a few more correct now, which is absolutely right, because it is correct. Well done. The thing for me to make clearer, I'm sorry, is that your singular verbs have S on them, okay, in the present simple. Therefore, you want the S if it's a single subject, no S if it's a plural subject. Excuse me. Let's have a look at the next one. The Prime Minister and his wife always eats at 6 p.m. What about this one, correct or incorrect? Okay, I've got lots of answers and they're all saying incorrect. So let's take a look. Yes, the subject is quite long now. There are two of them, therefore it should be plural. So your verb should be eat. Well done, everybody. Very good. Okay, let's look at the third one. The Prime Minister, accompanied by his wife, always eats at 6 p.m. Correct or incorrect? Okay, I've got lots of answers, one or two incorrects, and lots of people saying correct. So let's take a look at this one. Here, you just need to be careful about what your subject is. Your subject is the Prime Minister. Accompanied by his wife is extra information. It's not part of your subject in this sentence. Therefore, the subject is singular. Eats, therefore, is correct. If you said correct, well done. Sorry, I'm just going to check the chat box. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay, thank you. There are other words that always go with singular nouns and other words that always go with plural nouns, and I've included some of them here, okay? We can't use words like a or an. Obviously, they just mean those two words mean one, and therefore they only work with singular nouns. Another, this, and that are other ones, and they should never be used with plural nouns. So, for example, don't say, go and sit on that chairs, because chairs is plural and that has to be singular. Then you have these words in red, which always work with plural words, never with singular ones. Few, many, these, those, several. You cannot use those with singular, excuse me, with singular nouns, okay? Sorry, I'm checking the chat box again. Okay, I hope that's clear. So I'll give you a couple of practice questions. Okay, all I want to know with these ones, is the sentence correct? Is it okay or not okay? So you can type okay, not okay, correct or incorrect. Let's look at number one. Passing the TOEFL test will make you a happy people. Good, thank you, everybody. I've got a few people saying correct, most people saying incorrect, and some going as far as to say why. Oh, sorry, can I return to the previous slide? Yes, I can.
Oke, teman-teman untuk materi jangan khawatir ya. Nanti materinya ini kita akan share melalui email aktifnya kalian. Jadi nanti di akhir acara kita akan kasih tahu ke kalian gimana caranya kalian bisa mendapatkan materi sama e-certificate hari ini. Jadi pastikan kalian bisa stay dulu sampai acaranya selesai. Nanti kalian akan bisa mendapatkan materi yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Mr. Darren pagi hari ini melalui email aktifnya kalian ya.
Okay. Thank you, Farid. Okay, I'll go back to the slide then. Most of you are saying incorrect, and some of you are even saying why and saying it's because of the word people. You're absolutely right. This is a kind of tricky one because a lot of my students kind of use people as the singular, but I saw in the chat box someone said it should be person, and you're absolutely right. Person is singular, people is plural. Therefore, you can't use people with a. Okay, you could change this to will make you a happy person, or you could change it to will make you happy people, but you can't have the a with the people. All right, well done if you got that. Let's have a look at number 2. Let's have a party after this is all finished. Correct or incorrect?
Oke, kalimat nomor 2 kira-kira menurut kalian benar apa salah? Jadi kalau misalnya masih bingung dan penjelasan yang pertama, dijelasin sama Mr. Darren dan salah satu teman kita di chat box, kenapa akhirnya kalimat yang pertama itu salah, karena people itu plural. Sedangkan di kalimatnya itu menggunakan make you a happy people. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian pakai a happy, jadi di situ kalian nggak bisa pakai people, tapi pakainya person. Oke, karena di situ singular. Kalau pakai e berarti ya udah cuma satu doang. Tadi kan di slide sebelumnya itu kan dijelaskan ketika ada an dan lain sebagainya itu singular. Jadi kalian nggak perlu pakai s atau apapun itu di belakangnya kalau memang itu singular. Nah ini kan memang a happy people. Jadi di situ kalian nggak bisa menggunakan kata-kata yang plural. Jadi kalian harus pakai person di situ ya.
Okay. I've got lots of corrects, a few incorrects, and so someone's saying, what is the second sentence? I mean this one. Let's have a party
after this is all finished. So what is the answer?
Lots more correct, so I'll just show you the answer. It's absolutely fine. It's a bit harder maybe because we don't know what this is necessarily referring to, but we do know that this is singular and we know that is singular. Okay. If it was these is all finished, it would be wrong. If it said this are all finished, it would be wrong. So as long as these two match, that's okay. All right. And then finally, we have sentence number 3. These tips are more useful than another ones. Again, correct or incorrect?
Kalimat yang terakhir, these tips are more useful than another ones.
We've got lots and lots of people saying correct, 1 or 2 saying incorrect. Oh, now we've got some more incorrects coming through. Wow, they come in waves. It is quite a tricky one, this. It's quite tricky because it sounds okay. If you just say the sentence to yourself, it kind of sounds okay. But it shouldn't do because it's wrong. It is incorrect. Why is it incorrect?
Is it because the ones at the back?
Kind of. It's because of another and ones. Ones is plural. It's quite a strange word because you've got the word one and then you've made it more than one. But yeah, ones is plural, and the word another cannot work with a plural. It has to work with singular things. If you think of the word another, it's basically, I'm going to say something now which I don't know is true, but I've always assumed that it used to be 2 words, an, other, one. I assume that's the case, but even if it's not, it works the same as a or an. It's always talking about one thing. Therefore, you could say these tips are more useful than another one, but it's a really weird sentence because you're only talking about one tip. The correct sentence should be, these tips are more useful than other ones. Okay. So you should lose this an here. Let me just check if we have questions.
How about if we use the other?
I should say, by the way, I've got a comment here. Tips is singular, but they put are, so it's incorrect. It's actually not. That's not the case. Tips is plural. Singular would just be tip, tip. Okay, so I'd say this tip is more useful, or these tips are more useful. Okay, and again, these 3 things would have to match up. singular, 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 or plural, plural, plural. It's over here that we have the problem. Okay, with the another, which is singular, and ones, which is plural.
Ya, jadi masalahnya di kalimat yang ketiga itu bukan yang ada di 3 kata pertama ya, karena memang mereka semua sudah plural di situ. Ada these tips are more useful. Yang tadi sempat jadi masalah adalah another sama once. Another itu singular, sedangkan once itu tadi is it ya? Another is singular.
Another
right?
is singular, yeah.
Singular. Terus ada once-nya di situ. Jadi di situ agak membingungkan sebenarnya. Makanya akhirnya kalimat itu salah di situ. Oke?
Okay. The last thing I'm planning to do is just give you some practice with what TOEFL loves to do, which is basically making it very difficult to find your subject and verb so that they can match up. So we'll have 2 or 3 practice questions and then we're done, and you can ask any questions in the chat box. So question number 1, it's a bit tricky, which is why I have a scary face. Have a read and just answer A, B, C, or D. Remember, you're looking for the part of the sentence which is wrong.
Oke, mana menurut kalian kata-katanya which of those 4 are wrong ya?
Which underlined part? A, B, C, or D?
A, B, C, D, E.
It is quite a good mix this time, isn't it? Mostly C's and D's from what I can see.
C, Mr. Darren.
Okay, let's have a look.
Oh yeah, D.
The correct answer is C. Well done if you put C, it's the correct answer. Very, very good. And it's really tricky.
Why?
Well, because this is your subject, international specialization. This is the subject and it's singular. And TOEFL does this a lot, so be ready for it. What they do is put all sorts of stuff in between the subject and the verb. So here we've got a preposition phrase, and then we've got an example. You can tell that this is extra information because it's separated by commas. So if you find a sentence like that, it's a good idea to imagine it without that part in it. So ignore this. And that way it makes it a bit easier to find where your subject and verb are. But basically, you've got a singular subject and you've got a plural noun. What you should have is an S. International specialization increases world efficiency and output. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Darren, I have a question. Actually, since we discuss a lot about subject and verbs to find which of the words in these sentences are wrong, do we need to find a subject first, and then we can find which part of the sentences is wrong, or?
It depends very much on who's doing the test. I think some students that do TOEFL do better when they just trust their instincts and go with how it sounds. But you need to have A, very good English for that, and B, it helps if you've learned a lot of your English through listening. Maybe you've lived abroad in an English speaking country and you've learned more of your English through kind of listening and being around English rather than studying grammar. So those people tend to be better trusting their instincts and not bothering to look for subjects and verbs. They just think this bit sounds wrong. For most people, yes, in the TOEFL test, identifying your subject and identifying your verb is a big deal. It's a big part of it. Partly because it affects so many different questions in the structure test.
Oke. Jadi tadi aku sempat tanya ke Mr. Darren karena memang kita dari tadi ini sempat ngebahas subjek sama verb yang mungkin teman-teman, kalau misalnya ada teman-teman yang agak kebingungan ya di sini ya dengan penjelasan kita pagi hari, karena jujur aku agak bingung sebenarnya. Kita sama-sama belajar pagi hari ini karena dari tadi kita sempat mengidentifikasi tentang subjek sama verb. Aku tadi sempat tanya ke Mr. Darren, apakah memang sebenarnya untuk structure and written expression ini kita benar-benar harus menemukan mana verbnya, mana subjeknya dulu untuk betul-betul akhirnya mengidentifikasi mana sih sebenarnya part yang ada di kalimat ini yang salah dari kalimat-kalimat yang digarisbawahi. Nah, tadi akhirnya Mr. Darren menjelaskan bahwa kalau memang kita punya kapasitas bahasa Inggris yang cukup mumpuni, apalagi kita terus menggunakan bahasa Inggris sebagai bahasa kita berkomunikasi sehari-hari, sense of apa ya, rasa kayak otomatis ngerasa bahwa ini udah pasti salah nih, karena memang aku ngerasa ketika itu dibaca keras atau aku coba untuk mengungkapkan hal tersebut itu salah. Jadi mostly orang-orang yang memang sering menggunakan bahasa Inggrisnya akan menggunakan instingnya bahwa itu salah. Tapi kalau misalnya kita di sini adalah orang yang memang jarang banget menggunakan bahasa Inggris, terus kita coba belajar itu untuk bisa menemukan mana subjek, mana verb, itu akan jadi penting banget untuk bisa mengerjakan soal-soal akademik seperti ini. Kenapa akhirnya menemukan subjek sama verb itu jadi hal yang paling penting dan yang mungkin bisa paling mudah kita lakukan untuk bisa mengidentifikasi kira-kira dari kalimat itu mana kata-kata yang menurut kita itu salah dari penemuan antara subjek sama verbnya itu tadi. Kurang lebih seperti itu. Baik, Mr. Darren.
Okay, thank you. I think I have two more questions for you. And same deal, just A, B, C, or D. Which bit is wrong?
Latihan lagi. TOEFL itu nggak ada apa-apa selain latihan, teman-teman. Serius deh. Udah, tadi kan udah jawab. Dijawab lagi yuk, kira-kira A, B, C, atau D?
Okay, I got a lot of C's, one or two A's. Well done if you put C. You're absolutely right. It's the problem we were just looking at. You've got A, which needs to work with singular things, and then we've got kinds of music. That cannot be correct. It's both singular and plural. Be first. And last question. Oops, sorry. There we go. That's my explanation for you. And the last question for you. I like this question because I like Alaska. A, B, C, or D?
Alaska. Okay. Oh, I think Mr. Darren can keep count. Is he? Oke, sepertinya ada masalah koneksi dari Mr. Darren. Kita beralih dulu ya, kalau begitu ya, dari soal-soal tadi boleh di-share PPT-nya dulu, teman-teman. Aku akan coba sampaikan informasi sedikit sambil menunggu penjelasannya Mr. Darren ya, sambil menunggu Mr. Darren balik lagi. Sepertinya ada masalah dengan koneksinya Mr. Darren dulu. Nah, kali ini seperti yang kalian ketahui bahwa hari ini kita lagi belajar masalah structure and written expression nih. Jadi kelas gratis hari ini seputar TOEFL ini nanti masih akan berlanjut 2 sesi lagi seputar TOEFL. Tapi sebelum aku menjelaskan kira-kira kapan timeline-nya untuk bisa melanjutkan kelas TOEFL selanjutnya ini, aku mau menyampaikan beberapa hal dulu. Nah, buat kalian yang memang di sini sudah bergabung sama IF, thank you so much untuk kalian di sini. Nah, bagi kalian yang belum nih, aku mau menyampaikan sesuatu untuk kalian, terutama kalau misalnya kalian pengen coba kelas atau program-program yang disediakan sama IF, terutama untuk TOEFL. Jadi di sini kalau misalnya kalian penasaran kira-kira di IF itu sebenarnya ada kelas persiapan untuk TOEFL atau IELTS nggak sih? Kalau misalnya kalian kemarin sempat ikuti IF Talk seputar IELTS kemarin, jawabannya ada. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian di sini pengen lebih fokus lagi belajar seputar IELTS atau TOEFL, kalian bisa menemukan program dan kelas yang sesuai untuk kalian belajar fokus seputar IELTS dan TOEFL. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian pengen belajar atau menemukan program-program lain yang misalnya lebih sesuai dengan keinginan dan kebutuhan kalian, kalian bisa langsung menghubungi IF Center terdekat. Nah, salah satu program yang kali ini tersedia untuk kalian untuk ngisi liburan sekolahnya kalian nih, terutama nih, salah satu programnya adalah Holiday Academy, di mana di kelas khusus liburan ini, kelasnya itu cuma 2 minggu, di mana kelasnya singkat banget, cuma 2 minggu dan harganya juga mulai dari 1 jutaan. Nah, kalau misalnya kalian tertarik, kira-kira ada program apa aja sih, Mister, di kelas khusus liburan ini, kalian bisa langsung cari tahu nanti di IF Center terdekat atau kalian bisa menghubungi hotline numbernya IF di 0822 2000 melalui WhatsApp. Nanti kalian bisa cantumin di situ. Atau kalau misalnya nanti mau ketika kalian ngisi untuk klaim e-certificate, kalian juga akan diarahkan untuk mengisi form di mana kalau misalnya kalian tertarik dengan programnya IF, kalian tinggal centang aja kalau misalnya kalian mau mendapatkan penawaran khusus dari IF atau berkenan untuk dihubungi untuk mendapatkan penawaran seputar program-program IF yang sesuai untuk kalian. Nah, seperti yang aku sampaikan tadi bahwa nanti acara atau kelas gratis ini nantinya akan masih berlanjut, terutama di bulan Juni ini. Kalau hari ini di tanggal 3 kita belajar seputar written expression. Selanjutnya untuk kelas gratis selanjutnya ini nanti kita akan ada di tanggal berapa? Boleh diganti slide-nya. Kalau nggak salah tanggal 17 ya. Iya, tanggal 17 Juni sama Mr. Darren lagi. Nanti kita akan belajar seputar reading section. Jadi seperti yang sudah dijelaskan Mr. Darren di awal bahwa ada 3 part di TOEFL yang perlu kalian ketahui. Yang pertama ada written expression, lalu ada reading, yang kedua ada listening. Jadi nanti dari written expression atau dari structure yang hari ini kita akan belajar lagi seputar reading tanggal 17 Juni. Terus nanti di sesi selanjutnya, di sesi terakhir kelas TOEFL kita akan belajar seputar listening. Jadi di sini kalian bisa dapat tips-tips seputar TOEFL, terutama ketika ngerjain kayak tadi misalnya kita discuss dan dikasih highlight sama Mr. Darren bahwa kalau misalnya kalian nemu tips seputar written expression, kalian tidak perlu membaca soal itu secara lengkap, tidak disarankan sama sekali. Karena kalian sendiri tahu ketika akhirnya soal itu muncul, bahwa ada beberapa hal yang sudah kalian jawab itu sebenarnya itu gak jadi masalah. Jadi hal seperti ini nanti kita akan patahkan bersama-sama bareng sama Mr. Darren di kelas-kelas selanjutnya ya. Nanti link pendaftarannya akan dicantumkan di kolom chat box oleh tim saya di sini. Jadi setelah ini kita akan kasih tahu kalian juga cara kalian untuk bisa klaim e-sertifikat dan dapatkan materinya. Mr. Darren sudah balik. Back to you, Mr. Darren.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. My internet suddenly disappeared, but it's back now. We were almost finished. I had one more thing to do, so I'll just show you quickly that last question. Otherwise, it's like a scary cliffhanger, isn't it? Oh no, that's start from the beginning. Sorry, hold on.
Oke, sambil nunggu materinya Mr. Darren, di sini aku share link untuk bisa daftar IF Talk selanjutnya ya teman-teman ya. Jadi kalian bisa langsung dapat momen early bird-nya biar kalian nggak lupa dan kalian bisa langsung lock seat-nya kalian untuk bisa ikut kelas gratisnya. Aku sudah cantumin link untuk daftarnya di kolom chat box. Jadi nggak perlu live dari Zoom-nya. Kalian bisa langsung daftar aja nanti setelah ini. Setelah dari Mr. Darren menjelaskan, kita akan kasih tahu atau kasih attachment untuk kalian bisa klaim e-certificate dan mendapatkan materinya. Oke? Back to you, Mr. Darren.
Okay, there we go. The final question. Alaska's vast areas of untamed wilderness attracts many people who enjoy the outdoors. Same old, just type A, B, C, or D. Which part is wrong?
I think some of them already...
My chat box disappeared as soon as I disconnected.
Yeah. Mostly say I saw A, but most of them said C.
Okay.
I saw D also.
I see lots of C's here as well, which is good. Let's have a look. It is C. Very well done if you said C. Why? Because this is not the subject. And again, this is TOEFL's favorite trick. Put something else next to the verb that looks like it agrees with it. But really, your subject is over here. It's plural, so it should be a plural verb, attract, no S. Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry, let me go back to that one.
Oke, jadi penjelasannya tadi di bagian yang ini, again kalau misalnya kalian bisa menemukan subjeknya di mana, subjeknya itu ada di area, di mana di situ adalah plural, maka yang salah adalah di attracts. Di situ juga harusnya bisa pakai sesuatu yang berbeda di situ. Jadi subjeknya bukan di how do you spell that? Wilderness?
Wilderness.
Oh, oke, wilderness. Oke, jadi penjelasannya seperti itu ya teman-teman ya. Okay. Is there anything you want to say, Mr. Darren, to
No, thank you
our
for
lovely
listening.
students this morning?
Thank you very much, and well done for all your right answers and all your other answers. This just means if you have any other questions that I can help with, feel free to stick them in the chat box.
Oke, nah kalau misalnya kalian ada pertanyaan, ini sambil aku kasih ya link untuk kalian bisa klaim e-sertifikatnya, karena itu tadi materi dari Mr. Darren yang sudah disampaikan. Nah, untuk kalian bisa isi e-sertifikatnya, kalian bisa scan atau bisa langsung klik link yang ada di bawah ini. Dan pesannya adalah ketika kalian klaim, pastikan kalian mengisi nama lengkap dan email aktif kalian ya. Karena memang nanti materi dan juga e-sertifikat akan kita kirimkan melalui email. Jadi pastikan kalian menulis dengan lengkap dan benar untuk nama lengkap dan email aktifnya kalian. Karena ketika kita melakukan proses, masih kita temukan ada beberapa email yang invalid. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian kemarin sempat ikut kegiatan-kegiatan sebelumnya dan kalian belum sempat dapat e-sertifikatnya, mungkin kalian bisa pastikan lagi hari ini bahwa penulisan email kalian sudah betul, nama lengkap kalian juga sudah benar, jadi nanti kalian bisa menerima e-sertifikat dan materinya dengan baik juga. Oke? Okay? Thank you so much, Mr. Darren, for your explanation.
Thank you for listening. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay,
I hope it was useful.
And then we'll see you again on June 17, I think, and we discuss about reading.
In 2 weeks, I believe. Oh, hold on, we've got one question.
2 weeks. We have one more question. As you mentioned in the beginning, structure and written can only be done for 20 minutes. Do you have any tips to quick guess the answer when the time is out?
Honestly, when the time is out, the most important tip really is to guess. You know, whatever you do, don't leave an answer blank. That's the worst thing you could do because it's automatically wrong. And depending, when you say the time is out, depending just how little time you have, honestly, I think it's usually best just to pick a letter. If you've got 4 or 5 questions still to do, and you don't even really have time to read the sentence, just fill in A for those last few on your mark sheet. If you do have time to read them, then maybe it is time to go for your instinct. Even if that's not normally the one that works for you. Just read the sentence, go for the bit that sounds wrong. Generally, if you've run out of time, it'll be the written expression part that you've still got some questions on, because that's the second part of the test. So it'll always be find the bit that's wrong. So you can just trust your instinct a little bit. And if the worst comes to the worst, you've still got a 25% chance of getting it right just by picking an answer. Don't leave the answers blank.
Okay. Jadi semoga terjawab ya pertanyaannya Kazalwa, bahwa kalau memang kalian mulai ngerasa kehabisan waktu tapi ternyata soalnya mungkin masih banyak untuk bisa dikerjakan, jangan pernah meninggalkan jawaban kalian dengan kosong. Jadi ya udah, mau nggak mau karena memang kalian punya keterbatasan waktu untuk mengerjakan hal itu, pakai aja insting kalian, kira-kira jawaban mana yang menurut kalian benar ya. Jadi jangan pernah, pesannya adalah jangan pernah meninggalkan jawaban kalian kosong, udah itu aja. Kalau memang kalian perlu jawab, perlu cap cip cup mana jawaban yang menurut kalian benar, ya udah jawab aja. Pokoknya jangan pernah meninggalkan jawaban kalian kosong, oke? Kak Anggi, emailnya materinya nanti kita akan kirimkan melalui email ya. Sekali lagi pastikan kalian mengisikan nama lengkap dan email aktif kalian dengan benar untuk bisa mendapatkan materi dan e-sertifikatnya dari kegiatan pagi hari ini, oke? Thank you so much, Mr. Darren. Terima kasih semuanya yang sudah hadir pagi hari ini. Nggak kerasa udah 1,5 jam dari kelas yang harusnya berjalan 1 jam. Kita akan ketemu lagi tanggal 17 besok, 17 Juni di hari Sabtu, sama jam 10 pagi. Pelaksanaannya juga masih online. Jadi dari manapun kalian, mau di rumah, mau dimanapun, mau sambil jalan-jalan atau lagi perjalanan menuju ke suatu tempat, kalian tetap bisa ikut kelas gratisnya untuk bisa dapetin ilmu, terutama di materi TOEFL sampai bulan Juli mendatang. Jadi sampai ketemu lagi di tanggal 17. Thank you so much, Mr. Darren. See you again.
Thank you, everybody.
In 2
Hopefully
weeks.
see you in 2 weeks.
Oke,
Thank you.
sampai ketemu lagi ya teman-teman ya. Sekali lagi terima kasih. Mohon maaf kalau saya dan Mr. Darren ada hal yang mungkin belum sempat terjelaskan. Semoga nanti bisa dijelaskan ulang lagi di tanggal 17 mendatang di reading section ya semuanya. Sampai ketemu lagi 2 minggu ke depan semuanya. Selamat siang.